Hi everybody, it's Couple Indemnity. We are a film podcast about the love of cinema by two very dedicated film fans. I'm Izzy, and as ever I'm joined by Hal. Hi Hal.
Hello, Izzy. And this is a nice change, isn't it, for you to be chairing for this week?
It felt very unnatural, I'm not going to lie.
Wait, was that your suggestion at the last minute?
I've got heart palpitations.
No, I think we're fine. So this week we did a French New Wave film suggested by you. So it's another turn up for the books.
I know.
Normally
Full
it's
of surprises.
Normally it's me going with these highbrow films from this kind of experimental era of European filmmaking.
It is unusual for me, as has been the weather this week.
A few years ago, I kind of went through a bit of a batch of these, didn't I? I kind of went off on quite a few Alain Delon films, a lot of quite deep psychological films from this sort of period, didn't I? And I think it's safe to say that some of those you respected and some of them, they didn't really work on you, did they?
No, I struggle with the existentialism of a lot of those French New Wave films. It just drags and it's very dull and quite up its own. It's very pretentious.
So you fancied for this week doing a film called Hiroshima Mon Amour, which is a very highly rated film by Alain Resnais, which even by its own title suggests a very deep subject matter.
Yeah, it was a film that I had actually come across when I was working in educational libraries, because I'd been working on the French section. So I had the book and the film and I was having to catalogue it all. So I was having to do research in order to catalogue it. So that's how I came across it. Obviously, Resnais has lots and lots of films, that some of which I'd heard of, but this was the first one that kind of stood out to me, and because I think the synopsis sounded more interesting than sad French boy wandering around Paris.
Yeah, I think Alain Resnais has a very respected reputation within, but he's not quite as notorious and remembered in the same way that Jean-Luc Godard is or Francois Truffaut.
Yeah,
but he's one of the kind of early pioneers.
Yeah,
of it. And I think we'll talk about some of his other works later, a couple of which I'm familiar with. This was the first time watch for me, and I did have it on the list, so we would have got to it eventually. But I think we were very drawn into the female lead, who we know from a much older role.
Yeah, of course.
In Amour, which we'll talk about later as well. But we've got no trailer for this one, so we'll get straight into it now, shall we? So, Hiroshima Mon Amour, released at Cannes in 1959, written by Marguerite Duras, starring Emmanuelle Riva and Eiji Okada, directed, as we said, by Alain Resnais. Why don't you go with the synopsis we have?
A French actress filming an anti-war film in Hiroshima has an affair with a married Japanese architect as they share their differing perspectives on war.
So, I think we're going to say some mixed things about this movie, but I think the first 15 minutes of this, in this kind of montage of rotating imagery we get this image first suggested to us, and it almost looks like a pre-title credit sequence of a woman's hand holding the back of a man's back.
Yeah.
And that's
fingers digging in.
And that evolves into this extraordinary and quite disturbing newsreel footage of the aftermath of the Hiroshima bombing.
Yeah, but it's, as you say, it's interspersed with those images of an embrace, but the skin of the people is interchangeably covered in sweat, but then also covered in ash.
Ash, yes, exactly.
And it's glittering, so it's a very disturbing opening to a film.
Whilst we have a ongoing, evolving commentary and a monologue from who we go on to see is the lead female character. And just the quality of the imagery, especially once the newsreel footage finishes and we get this kind of a slowly moving camera shot of going down a hospital corridor.
Yeah. And in the museums as well.
I think for me, that really sets the standard for the film. And very much the quality of the aesthetic here, it's extraordinary and really powerful.
But there was a lot of controversy about that beginning of the film because of the interspersion of real newsreel footage. So there was a lot of criticism contemporary wise when it was released, because they were saying that it had been kind of it's been taken advantage of almost. Not glorified, but it had been kind of thing, like voyeuristic.
Yeah.
In that it was using real newsreel footage, but inserting it into this kind of love story. So there was a lot of criticism at the time, but it's very impactful, the opening of the film, with the like really clever camera panning and black and white cinematography. And I mean, there are some horrendous shots as well. Like I think we did quite well, but the one with the eye was I think the limit for both of us.
Yeah, it's very graphic. Some of them are kind of what you'd kind of expect from images of the aftermath of a bombing, but some of them are quite extreme.
Yeah.
Occasionally,
and a lot of very distressing images of children as well.
Yeah,
I think
which is always the hardest to take with any of these things.
But it's also interspersed with fictional footage, which we come to learn is part of the film that the main character is filming while she's in Hiroshima. So there's also like protests and kind of like the streets and buildings of modern Hiroshima as well, because she's in Hiroshima filming something.
Well, it's an anti-war film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I found this bit strange, though, looking back on it. There's a voiceover where she seems to be in conversation with somebody else, where they're saying, you were never in the hospital. You were not in Hiroshima Hospital. So I don't know if this is like way into the future, maybe she's had some sort of psychological break.
Yeah, I think we've already got our first use of the director's use of time jumps.
Yeah.
And it's something that it's suggested, and it's implied that it's happening. It's a conversation that takes place in the future between our two main characters.
Yeah, or if it's not him, it's like a therapist or someone.
Well, that camera shot down the hospital corridor is very dreamlike.
Yeah.
And that again, it's the director's technique of using.
Yeah, I think the whole film is a psychological break. To be honest, like it's very. Like the amount of times I was like, this woman is screwed up. Like,
absolutely, yeah. I mean, I think that's really a dominant theme in the second half of the film.
But yeah, my reading on that is that it's a future conversation had where perhaps she's in therapy and she's getting it confused in her brain of her being in Hiroshima, but actually it was the film, so it wasn't real. But she's almost convinced herself she was there.
Yeah. I mean, the first scene we actually see in present time between the two characters is when they wake up in the morning. And so it's obviously implied that they'd slept together, but we don't know their prior relationship.
Yeah, it's a strange place to start with a film like this, isn't it? Like, you don't start in the bar or the cafe where they met the night before. You start the morning after, and the kind of the aftermath of the affair. So they're still getting to know each other, but it's clear that there's a real kind of chemistry between them, like an attraction.
And it's funny because we don't hear either of
their names.
I think his name is.
Do we?
Yeah, Louis, and her name is Elle, but they're very rarely or sparsely used as character names. It turns out that he is an architect who is also involved in politics. And as we said, she's an actress and she's involved with the filming there.
There's also that shot, isn't there, where she's on the balcony or something making coffee and she comes back in, and the way he's lying in bed, he's lying like face down with his hand out behind him and his fingers like twitch with sleep. And we get the like jump cut flashback to a man dead on the street as she's like crying over him, I think. And absolutely. He's covered in blood.
Yeah.
And I think it's very clear, even from that very quick shot, that it's a war scene.
Yeah. Presumably in France, where she comes from.
Yeah. So anyway, we see this conversation that they have, don't they, where they start to tell each other a little bit about their backgrounds, perhaps, that they hadn't got round to the night before. And she says that she's from this place in France called Nevers.
Nevers.
That she is quite evasive about, and she says she'll never go back.
Yeah, I mean, it pops up repeatedly as the film goes on, but she is quite obviously haunted by even the thought and memory of her hometown, because there's obviously been a tragic incident that's happened there, and it's the root cause of her wanting to try and get it out of her mind.
There's a weird line from her in the earlier part of the film where he asks her about Nevers, and she says, it's the place that I dream about the most, but I think about the least. So I thought that was a strange line.
I think she's thinking about her conscious thoughts and what she wants to think about.
Yeah.
She's doing everything she can to avoid thinking about it.
It's also revealed in that initial conversation that this arrangement is not going to last because she's going home to Paris the day after next. So she's got to finish the film and then she's going home.
And it's in one of these earlier conversations where she admits that she has children and is married.
Oh, right.
It does come up in one mention.
But it's not the focus of the film, is it? Like,
no. It's not. I mean, I'm pretty sure there's one moment where he admits he's married as well.
Yeah, that's when they go to his apartment, like a little bit later on, and she says, "Where is your wife?" And he says she's up in the mountains or something, doing something. And she says, "When will she be back?" And he says, "In a few days." And she asks what's she like, and he says she's beautiful. But I think the insinuation is that they've both had affairs before.
Yeah, I think the focus of the film is not about the guilt or their conscience of having affairs. It's very much that these two people happen to meet at this time in their lives in this post-war period of history, and that is the real focus of it. She is a woman who is unable to deal with the trauma of what's happened in her life, and I think he picks that up quite early. So the affair is not really the focus we have here, unlike a lot of other films we tend to watch.
I think the whole nature of this film is that it's very much like, it's almost like a cat and mouse game for like the majority of the film. Like, they come together, she flees, he follows. They come together, she flees, he follows. So there's like a lot of kind of like on location shooting around Hiroshima and going to like cafes or tea rooms or train stations, wherever it happens to be. And every time they come together, they have deeper conversations. And there's also this kind of unraveling of this female character.
Yeah.
Because every time they come together and she tells him more secrets and she divulges more about her background, she becomes more and more kind of upset. She becomes more deranged and distraught. And it's clear kind of throughout the film that is a real kind of unraveling of her.
Yeah, and I think it's the second or third major scene they have together with dialogue. I think it's at the tea room where we first get the truth behind what she's so haunted by in Nevers. And we get the full story of how she fell in love with a German soldier in France. And they had planned to elope and go to Germany. But he was shot from a distance.
But the way that it's told, like through this kind of non-linear narrative, it's very like you're trying to piece things together. Like, it's very easy for us to say she was with a German soldier, they planned to go to Bavaria, it went wrong, he was shot.
By this point,
we're piecing things together through montage.
By this point, we'd had at least 3 or 4 brief flashbacks. And some of them are almost like intercut with scenes in the present day, almost to imply that they're just very unconscious thoughts in the woman's head.
I think it just shows how psychologically damaged she is as well, that it's not really making sense. I mean, this really comes to my main criticism of the film, really, because I find that there's a real lack of time spent on him. Because he has an interesting story as well. We learned that his whole family died in the bombing in Hiroshima, but he didn't because he was at war. And I felt like there was a missed opportunity, really, in telling his story more, because what it becomes is just about her. There's this weird scene in the tea room where he starts almost pretending to be the German soldier, where he's like, and what happened to me? He's talking as if like in first person. I find that very odd, that scene.
Yeah, it is. It's a bit confusing, isn't it? And how to process something like that.
Which makes it feel like he is just a figment of her imagination, because he's just taking on this. It's how she's like going through grief and everything, but I don't know. It's a very odd scene. But we learned that this German soldier was shot. She stayed with him while he died. But then perhaps the worst thing is that she's treated as a traitor in her local community in Nevers. And so the reason why she's completely rejected this place is because when they found out about the relationship with the soldier, her parents locked her in her room and the cellar. Whenever she screamed in her bedroom, they would punish her by locking her in the cellar for like weeks.
Yeah, I mean I always find that a fascinating point of history, is that the how the French community dealt with anyone who became involved with the occupiers, and how the resistance, it became quite a toxic community in some of the villages. I mean, that's a fascinating part of French history.
But it's medieval what they do to her. Like they shave all her hair off. They like basically leave her down there without food. So she's like licking the walls because it's got salt in it. Like that's a really disturbing scene. There's something very kind of like Passion of Joan of Arc.
Yes,
about that
yeah,
whole,
I got that. I got those vibes. Yeah,
scene to me with her short hair and her like wide eyes and the way she's like clinging to the walls, and she's like she gets like dirt all around her face because she's just like burying her face in the wall to like lick it because she's been starved, and she's like digging into the wall with her fingers, so she's licking the blood off her hat. Like it's grim.
I think that what becomes quite hard work, I think, through the second half of the film, is that she is trying to, through such deep dialogue, and because it really does there's a lack of direct conversation going on here. It's very, the dialogue is very dressed up, and it's very back and forward, but she's trying to convey the pain of,
and very repetitive as well.
But trying to forget the German, and she's almost implying that becoming involved with a man from a country who's also experienced trauma will only heighten her own psychological scarring. She doesn't want to see more heartbreak.
Yeah.
But it can become repetitive, absolutely. And I think that's something you've mentioned before in criticism of some of these existential French films. I mean, France weren't the only country to do such existential films, but it definitely becomes a running theme in some of them.
Yeah, especially in that time period. But I get it, because like, you know, they're trying to deal with, especially in like the 50s and 40s, they're trying to deal with such huge concepts, like post-war. Like when we watched A Matter of Life and Death, we talked about how this was, but that's a very British way of dealing with grief and
absolutely
and loss, and trying to, like, the British stiff upper lip kind of, like, we battle on, we keep going even though it's hard, like love will get us through, like a very stiff upper lip. Whereas like the French version of that is like a very deeply philosophical, like very psychological route, which is like the world is crap and it's dark and horrible, and like and it faces the emotion head on, but it still can't quite make sense of the emotion, so it becomes very convoluted.
And also we're dealing with a theme here of a country who suffered some of the worst atrocities in World War II. We're dealing with Japan, and a lot of I think the news coverage of the trauma that Japan had experienced, not only with Hiroshima, was kind of swept under the carpet a lot. And like that's very the case in America, because there was a lot of pride about how they had overcome the Japanese, and you would never hear like any sympathy about the Japanese in the 50s. So it really took a film from the French New Wave and from a European production company to venture there.
Yeah. I guess the only film to have done it that's maybe breached those American markets has been Oppenheimer.
Oh, but yeah, but we're talking, it's taken until the 21st century.
Exactly, it's literally taken until... Because enough time has had to pass. In the 50s, the people who had made the decision and pushed the button were still very much alive and dealing with it themselves. Like, Hollywood wouldn't have been brave enough. And maybe they, like, some smaller independent companies did and we don't know about it. Be interesting to know if that did happen.
Yeah.
But... yeah, it's absolutely right that it's taken until the 2020s for, like, American production companies, British production companies to produce one.
Absolutely. One of the kind of more surprising moments is when we get Louis, the guy's reaction to a direct question he asks her when she tells him that she had never told her own present-day husband about the German. So he is the first person she's ever confided in about
Yeah.
this trauma. So it's almost like a personal like victory for him.
Yeah, he's very excited by the fact that she's never told
And
her husband.
maybe it's indicative of the fact he's falling in love with her.
But I think it's an element of possession, isn't it? In that you're
Yeah.
like, I own this part of this person now that person will never have.
Yeah, I like that shot. And I think it's probably the most romantic part of the film. It almost a bit reminded me of that embrace in Vertigo with James Stewart and Kim Novak when he holds her so closely and the camera moves around. But it wasn't the reaction I thought that we were kind of venturing into. But I don't think she can quite deal with that kind of embrace.
Yeah, it's funny that you're making kind of other film comparisons, because I think there's an element, I think it's her hairstyle. There's an element of Elizabeth Taylor in Who's Afraid for me as well, in her performance slightly, in the kind of unraveling of this character.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen a lot of female performances that I could compare it to in terms of the dissension of I'm not going to say madness. I don't think madness is quite the right word. I think it's just pure trauma.
She mentions madness, though. Is it in reference to what Nevers means to her? She says something like, Nevers is is a place of love, or Nevers is a place of madness, something like that. She does say the word madness.
Yeah, I can't remember that. It's
near the beginning.
And then we get those moments where she's left him there, and I think she's implied that she will say goodbye to him and they won't see each other again. And she goes back to her hotel late at night. And she's going back and forth into her room and then out into the corridor.
And into the bathroom.
And she is just at a complete loss about what to do. And I think there's definitely an element of guilt about telling him about the German and the fact that he was the first person she's ever told. And from this point, not an awful lot happens for the rest of the film, does it? We just get a lot of location filming at night. And again, some of the camera work is stunning, I would say, in this very monochrome black and white with the neon lighting in Hiroshima.
There's that weird scene where they're in the train station and they sit on a bench and there's an older Japanese woman between them. And he like leans over and offers her a cigarette. And then the older woman speaks to him in Japanese and is asking him, like, where is she from? So I don't know if that whole scene is to kind of make sense.
There's a lot of in these French New Wave films. There's a lot of walking around lost at night in these.
Oh yeah, I know.
There's a good film. I can't remember who the director is, but it's Elevated to the Gallows. I think it's Louis Malle. Kind of the female lead. I think it might be Jean Seberg. There's a long, ongoing, continuous shot sequences of her walking around late at night. But that I think that's a more enjoyable film personally.
And they eventually end up at a nightclub, don't they, called Casablanca?
Yeah, at first we thought, is that a cinema showing Casablanca, or is this just a restaurant called Casablanca?
But they like don't sit together. They sit like opposite each other at separate tables. It's a very strange ending.
Yeah, and she sat there continuously looking at him as he's followed her in. And they're sat sort of diagonally apart. And another Japanese guy almost goes over and hits on her, speaking to her in English.
Yeah.
And she's just kind of nodding away, but whilst continuously staring at Louis.
And then the film's very...
abrupt ending.
Weird ending.
So she's gone back to her hotel room and he's followed her back and knocks on the door. And they just have this brief yelling match, don't they?
So weird. She says his name is Hiroshima. He responds, yes, it is. And then he calls her Nevers. It's a very weird ending. But is it their acknowledgement of, like, both of these places have been traumatic, painful places for both of them?
They are assuming the identity of
but they're also
places.
Recognising the pain within each other. That got deep.
Very deep. Very deep, like the whole of the film. And so it's not a cheery experience, this movie.
No. Sorry.
I knew it wouldn't be a happy-go-lucky, uplifting experience, but I definitely would put this in the most bleak films we've watched.
Yeah.
I'm not sure
I
what
don't know if
bleak
it's as
films
bleak
we've
as
watched.
Amour.
Amour is... But I think Amour is far more powerful because it's so obvious and apparent and evident what's happening in front of you. Whereas this, it's very trying to kind of read between the lines.
Mm.
And this is what's more hard work about this film. I mean, on a technical level, I think it's stunning to look at.
Yeah.
And it's absolutely flawless. And why it's a good film. I cannot criticize it in any way. But it's how you process it and enjoy it, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's why French New Wave is very hot and cold. I am a fan of it, and as a film fan of history, I have a lot of respect for it. But some work for you, and some really don't.
Yeah, it's very personal.
It is a very personal thing.
But I guess that depends on the topics they're covering. So this is about trauma, but like you see a lot more about kind of grief and heartbreak.
I mean, two of Godard's films, like Breathless and Jules and Jim, like some of the most respected films from movie history. And for me, nothing really happens. It's just a very frustrating experience.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of listeners probably screaming at their phones, or because it may be disrespectful. But so let's talk about the trivia behind Hiroshima Mon Amour. So 5 years before the production of the movie, in 1954, Alain Resnais had been editing Agnes Varda's film Le Point Court, and he had, at the time, initially voiced concerns about his role in it because it was so close to the film he wanted to make himself. And it was the directorial debut of Resnais, and he said he wouldn't be able to do it unless the screenplay was written by Marguerite Duras, who went on to become a very highly acclaimed novelist and screenwriter and also film director herself.
Mm.
The concept for the movie itself had originally started off as a documentary about the Hiroshima bomb drop, as Alain Resnais had already directed himself a documentary in 1956 about the Holocaust called Night and Fog. And being a French and Japanese production, as we said, the movie was shot in equal parts in both countries, with the French parts of the movie taking place in the towns of Nevers and Autun, which is, I think, 10 or 15 miles away from Nevers in central France. At the awards, at the 1959 Cannes Film Festival, the film was actually excluded from the official selection because of the sensitive subject matter of nuclear bombs, and because they wanted to avoid upsetting the US government. But it did win the International Critics Prize Award. At the Oscars, Marguerite Duras' screenplay was nominated in the Best Original Screenplay Awards. That particular award was actually claimed that year by I.A.L. Diamond and Billy Wilder for The Apartment.
Ah.
Yeah. Emmanuelle Riva was nominated for Best Foreign Actress at the BAFTAs, but again, she was beat by Shirley MacLaine for The Apartment.
I do love The Apartment.
And this isn't actually an award, but I just thought it'd be worth talking about in this section. The American film critic Leonard Maitland had described Hiroshima Mon Amour as the birth of a nation of the French New Wave, which is high praise indeed, and it's testament to its importance on the emergence of this highbrow new movement from French cinema, because it came out the year before Truffaut's 400 Blows and Breathless in 1960.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely not as controversial as The Birth of a Nation.
No. Maybe we'll do that for the podcast one day.
No, there's not.
So, Emmanuelle Riva as Elle. What do we think of this performance?
I mean, for me, it's the standout, but that's because, of the extensive screenplay that's dedicated to giving her story, which is part of the frustration, because I think that, is it
Eiji Okada?
Eiji Okada would have deserved more screen time, or not, would deserved more dialogue.
Yeah, in the writing of the character.
Than just asking her questions.
Yeah.
But, I think her depiction of kind of, when she's in the cellars in Nevers and she's got to play like innocent 18-year-old versus...
Yeah, she's got to play scared. She's got to play timid. She has to play haunted. She also has to... There are brief moments where she has to play almost like a confident romantic woman who is not at the point of trauma.
Yeah, at the beginning, she's
a different woman.
She comes across as very kind of confident.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
Normal.
So it's a film, it's a performance of many moods, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's of many layers. And I think she is extraordinary. I think she is a fascinating actress to look back on. But I'm really pleased we have seen her in something in the earlier part of her career, but she was 32 at the time of this movie. And she really had a background in stage before she moved into movies around this time. But, you know, we just keep referencing the other film that we know when she was 84 years old in 2012's Amour by Michael Haneke.
It's one of those films that everyone should watch, but I don't think you can watch more than once for most people. I mean, I know you've seen it twice.
Yeah.
But that was just to show it to me.
I know. And there's a chance of a third one if we ever choose it for the podcast.
Oh, I don't know if I can.
I know.
It's a very upsetting film.
It's very upsetting. It's very profound. But she's extraordinary. And the reception she had on the back of Amour is fantastic. That movie earned her a Best Actress nomination at the Oscars and BAFTAs. But yeah, she lived to a grand old age. That film came out in 2012 and she passed away in 2017 at the age of 89. But yeah, I mean, she did appear in other films that may be on the podcast list. So she was in the first of the Three Colours trilogy in the 90s with Juliette Binoche, which is on the list for the podcast, by a Polish filmmaker. I can't remember his name. But yeah, very respected French actress. And I'm really glad we've got to cover her on the podcast for this film. So, Eiji Okada as Louis. I mean, it's an interesting performance, but it's frustrating for us, as we say, that we didn't get to... The focus of the trauma wasn't on him. He was very much a vehicle, almost.
Which I find slightly uncomfortable, seeing as the film is predominantly set in Hiroshima. Like, all of the focus is on her and her trauma. And it's like, but you're in one of the most traumatic places ever. And our focus isn't on him and the loss of his family.
I guess this part of it, what we're criticising, it would be interesting to know Marguerite Duras' screenplay. Did we say it was a book?
I thought it was a book. I could be wrong. I thought...
No, I think they're saying that she wrote the screenplay just for the movie.
Oh, right. Maybe. Okay.
Yeah.
I must have got that
in
wrong.
that case, it was obviously the sole intention to focus all of the backstory on her. But, I mean... He looked fantastic. Great suit he's wearing, isn't it? You can definitely see how she's falling in love with him. And it is a good performance for what he's got to work with. Reading about him, he was a Japanese actor who'd been a soldier for his country in World War II before he became a miner and a salesman in the immediate post-war years. Then in 1949 onwards, he became an actor and instantly became involved with Japanese movies. And he was in the very highly rated Japanese New Wave film Woman in the Dunes in 1964. The only couple of Hollywood films he was in The Ugly American with Marlon Brando. And I have seen him in another film in the 70s, in a much later Robert Mitchum film called The Yakuza by Sidney Pollack, that's set in Japan.
Right. About
an American hitman who goes there. So I think he plays one of the older Japanese gangsters in it. The only other performance is the German, who we have no dialogue and very little actual facial close-ups with.
Yeah.
He looked very familiar to me. I looked him up on the cast list. He's called Bernard Fresson, and he was a big French actor, mostly post this film. I think this was one of his earliest roles. He was in a number of great movies across the 60s and 70s, including Belle de Jour with Catherine Deneuve, I think. Is Paris Burning, which I have on the list, which is a great war movie. Je t'aime in 1968. Costa Gravas' Zed. He's in a very weird horror film by Polanski called The Tenant, which I've put on the list as well. But the film I'm most familiar with him is in French Connection 2. He plays the French contact when Gene Hackman goes to Marseille on the chase for the drug dealer.
How did you recognise him from the literal shot of his hand and dead face?
There are a couple of individual shots, but that wasn't what instantly made the penny drop. I had to look him up, and instantly I realised, because he's in a lot of French Connection too.
Yeah.
And he's it's a great role, and I can't wait to get to do those two films. So let's talk about Alain Resnais. As we said earlier, very highly rated director of the early French New Wave movement. But it's all to do with these themes, and I kept going back, and I was thinking in the first few shots of it that I had so many recollections to the other film I've seen him do, which was last year at Marienbad, because you get these slow moving camera shots, stunning location filming camera work, and these time jumps, suggestions of lapsed memory, which can be quite hard work, and that focus on imagination and consciousness. But Last Year in Marienbad is one of the most stunning looking films I've ever seen, but it is so confusing with how many time jumps there is. In that way, I found it quite a frustrating experience. I found this a little bit less frustrating, but it's still not very accessible. And I think you found that. So, but I can definitely see how someone like Christopher Nolan would have been inspired by Last Year at Marienbad.
The time shifts and freezes and everything.
Absolutely. So let's talk about our ratings. What did you give it out of 5?
I mean, it sounds harsh, really, my rating, but in terms of enjoyment level, I have to go off that, as well as my respect for it as an artistic medium. I said that it was a haunting and tragic depiction of memory, grief, love, and trauma against the backdrop of stunning location shooting and a chilling score. I think that the film must be some kind of metaphor for the pain of trying to move on after the war, and yet you're kind of constantly torn between moving on and still stuck there. Which I find interesting in facing that kind of complicated pain that arises from that. And I think that Riva stands out in her just kind of distraught psychological break. But my weakness is that it's a typical French New Wave film, and it's kind of quite dull, repetitive dialogue. And there is that frustration as well, and that I just feel like he deserved more time and character development. And there is that kind of discomfort in that this is set in Hiroshima, and yet it's all about her grief and her pain and trauma.
What would you say?
I gave it 3.75.
You gave it 3.75, yeah. Well, it's still a respectable score, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Overall. Yeah, I think it's a good balance and a fair score. I mean, I think it might be quite a rare one where I've given it a higher score than you have for your selection. I've given it 4.25. I think that's a balance of my respect for it, but also based on my enjoyment levels of it as well. But stunning looking and a very haunting French New Wave drama. I think I could watch it again a second time. I doubt you could, but I think I may get more from it on a second watch. Some of the imagery is very haunting, particularly in that early 15-minute monologue with the newsreel footage. And also, we haven't mentioned the music, because there is at times where you get this location shooting and these still images and camera shots of various parts of Nevers and Hiroshima, where the score is really at its most haunting. I think that is very much pushing the mood through, but it's very melancholic, and it's almost mournful at times with Elle's post-traumatic stress.
Yeah.
So I've given it 4.25. I was going to ask you, I mean, in the period when I was showing you a lot of the French New Waves, which do you think you were most impressed with?
Which ones have we seen again? Just give me a rundown.
I mean, I think films like Le Samurai and Le Piscine were more of a hit on you.
See, I think Le Samurai is more interesting because it's out of that genre, you know, like it's a crime, so there's more at stake, there's more plot. I find like the ones where they're kind of just wandering about in Paris being sad they're the most tricky ones for me.
I think we watched many of them. I think
we've definitely seen one of them. Which one was it?
It was Le Fou Follet.
Yeah, for that is epitomizes.
But I think you seem to think that all other 6 were like that.
No, but then we've seen ones like, which one's Maud? My Night with Maud.
Yeah,
that feels the same.
That was very based on religion and faith, and I think I had a lot of respect for that film. But that was with Jean-Louis Trintignant. But it is a genre I think we should revisit, because there's so many more good ones to do, and even not just from that time period. I mean, there's some great films from the late 60s when there was more themes being dealt with. So let's take a quick break, and we'll be back with my next selection. Right, as you know, I tend to stick to a list that we're working through with you, but something strikes me that I think we may need a bit of a lift after that film. So we might need something a bit lighter, and it's usually me who does the heavier stuff.
I do not think that's fair. This year, I definitely have chosen more heavy things.
Yeah, I think this year is kind of a lot of the patterns have kind of gone out the window, and I think we've both done some heavy hitters, haven't we?
Yeah.
But I think we do need to do a lighter film, and I'm gonna go. Another surprise for the books will be that it's a modern film, at least in the last 20 years. It's definitely a 21st century
it's been
film.
in my lifetime, is what you're
And
saying.
I never do many Hollywood comedy films either in the modern era.
Uh-huh.
So, any guesses?
No. American comedy in the last 20 years.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of any other way I can give you another clue without it just being a complete giveaway.
I mean, the thing is that you hate like Ben Stiller and Adam Sandler, so I know it's none of those.
No, it's a mix of actors who we know from things like television and serious American films of high quality. But it's a very interesting cast, and there's a few star cameos as well in it.
Like who?
It's a film I've talked about to you on the odd occasion, and you always go back to it. There's one actress in particular who you know from a sitcom who I always mention.
I know what we're watching. We're watching Horrible Bosses.
Horrible Bosses. We are finally doing it.
I'm excited for this.
I'm glad you are.
Because you've talked about it probably our entire relationship.
Have I? Really?
I think so, because as long as you've known me as a Friends fan, you've always talked about the only other thing that you've seen any of the cast members of Friends in is Jennifer Aniston.
Well, I think anyone, maybe male, who's seen Jennifer Aniston's performance in this will agree it's memorable.
Oh, Jesus.
But that's not the reason why it's so good, actually. It's very funny. And I happened to watch it in the cinema when it came out in 2011, around the time I was at uni, and just thought it was very funny. We are in a bit more of a sensitive society now, so there are some things in it which probably haven't aged very well, but it's not on the level of American Pie, and it's not particularly crude either. There's some very funny moments, and it's got some great performances from Jason Bateman, and it's got a cameo from Donald Sutherland in it, so it'll be another guest appearance for him in it. So I'm looking forward to getting to this one.
Yeah, I'm excited for this one as well.
It'll be fun, and I think you'll enjoy it and laugh more than American Pie.
Good.
So, all right, we'll leave it.
That one I just sat in kind of safeguarding horror.
All right, we'll leave it there. So we've been Couple Indemnity, and as ever, you can find us on all the good podcast platforms, and you can email us with anything you wish at coupleindemnity@gmail.com. We're on X, Blue Sky, and YouTube. She's been Izzy and I've been Hal, so join us next week for a spot of Horrible Bosses. See you then.
Bye, guys.